Hi, welcome back to Cubs and Culture for January 2nd, 2018. In this section, I'll be discussing my review of The Hurt Locker. The next section, I'll be discussing Avatar and Hurt Locker together, because that's where we're going with this. Now, what I think about The Hurt Locker depends on what sort of level with the film I'm engaging in. If we're thinking about this in terms of like a thriller action piece of Jason Bourne in Baghdad, it's a very good film. It's put together, it's slick. The shifting points of view during the action scenes make you feel like you're under attack. The way in which perspective changes, how you're not entirely sure of where the trigger man is during the action scenes. It works for tension, it works thematically in that you can't really trust anyone. And in a less skillful hand than Bigelow or Mock Bull, the film could have been very repetitive because it's about these guys who their job is to disarm bombs every day. So pretty much every action scene is the same sort of thing. Find the bomb, disarm the bomb, get the hell away from the bomb. There's a couple of other ones that are like a shootout or sniper battle. But by far and large, it's about disarming bombs. And both in terms of writing, what sort of bombs there are, and direction, how it's shot, also how the three guys who are disarming them are interacting for this particular episode has a different personality. And Sergeant James's Devil May Care, Adrenaline Junkie, makes for a very compelling sort of anti-hero within an action-era context. And on that level, as a basic sort of thriller film, I really like it. Now, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at this, the screenplay by Mark Bull wasn't satisfied just being an action story or a war story. It's really sort of interested in the psychology of war. This is why we have Sergeant James's domestic life to contrast how he's in Iraq with his kid. It's also why the three guys, Sergeant James is the adrenaline, reckless guy. The one's a scaredy cat, and the other one's sort of a middle ground, and the interaction with them. It's why you have sort of the shower scene towards the end of the film where James sort of breaks down, etc., etc., etc. The thing is, I don't think that fully works within the context of this movie because of two main things. The first thing is a hell of a lot of the movie is spent on logistics. Do we use the robot? Do we use the suit? How do I disarm this? Get me those pliers, etc., etc., etc. And while there's some scenes of purely psychological moments, like the shower breaking down scene, ultimately, the logistical stuff keeps bumping into the psychological stuff, and what I've read about the logistical stuff is it's very inaccurate. And so it's sort of misleading and takes up too much space. The other thing is, if we're interested in realistic psychology, which by all accounts this film is, it's sort of shot in a hyper-realistic docudrama sort of way, I don't find Sergeant James's Devil May Care attitude plausible. He's too reckless. Such people can exist, but they're not going to be allowed to disarm bombs in a war zone, especially Iraq. And because of that, it's really hard to take the film's ultimate goal sort of seriously, because it's supposed to be this exploration of psychology, but of a psychology that doesn't actually occur in the situation. And this sort of dovetails into my other big problem with the film, which is it's not interested in the big questions about Iraq. Should we have been there? Why are we there? They could have done this. It would have been possibly interesting to see these characters. But at the end of the day, it's so lasered focus on the sort of basic psychological reaction to disarming bombs that the bigger questions never occur to it, which results in a film which is non-ideological in the worst possible way. Which is to say, it's not actually non-ideological. Because the question, should we be in Iraq, never occurs to any of the characters, really. The answer for the film is yes, we should be in Iraq. It's not treated as an open question. Now, this film came out in 2008. It was up for Oscars in 2009. And that, I think, is morally suspect because we were still in Iraq at that time. You shouldn't use a current war to explore something other than the morality or the political aspects of that war. People were dying. It should be more. So the gist is, if it's just as an action film, very good, probably the best film by Iraq, but it shoots for being something more and it fails. Okay, so that's my 5 minutes. I'll be back to talk about Avatar and Hurt Locker together in part 3.